That was actually me back in 1994. I was 23 years old. I was in my first job doing some software, hardware sales in the graphic arts industries. Back when we had some heavy equipment and papers were on paper, and so I'm not going to make the same mistake again. So the metaverse is definitely here to stay, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I think that's the case. But I've already heard a few different versions of what is the metaverse. So I'm going to give you and offer you my view of what it is. And you may agree, you may disagree, and that's okay. I think I'm very open to different opinions on this topic. So let's see. The internet as we know it today, or at least up until not so long ago, and now I'm going super old school with some stick drawings, and it's actually my own drawing on my screen. We were looking through a window pane. We were looking at objects on the other side of the window pane. We could see them, but we could not touch them. That's pretty much the internet as we've seen it from 1994 through 2022. Then something happened. If Internet 3.0 or the metaverse or whatever we're going to call it, let's figure that out. But now this window pane has become like some sort of fluid thing. We can poke our heads through it. We can actually interact with these objects on the other side. We can enlarge them. We can do all kinds of crazy stuff with them, and that's super funny. And so we already talked about that already with VR Direct, and there were some great presentations on that. And most people tend to stop when we talk about metaverse when we come to virtual reality, and I think that's a pity, because it's also the ability to grab elements from the metaverse and retract them to real life through augmented reality, and we heard about that as well. So it's both a combination of immersing ourselves completely and extracting objects and seeing my new Nike shoes on my feet, or putting my IKEA furniture in the living room, and we saw some great use cases already. So we talked about that, and then I think there's a third very important element to what is the metaverse, and that's the ability to use a standard phone. This case, it's an iPhone 13 Pro. I can use the little LiDAR scanner. I can scan an object, or I can scan a room with a free app, by the way, Scaniverse, Polycam. There are so many great apps. I can scan an object in seconds, and I can upload it, or I can show it in AR, and we can meet in my living room, or I can scan the inside of an engine on a ship, and we can use that as well. So I think those are, at least in my view, some very important elements of the metaverse: the VR element, the AR, and the scan and put real life objects into a virtual setting or an augmented reality setting and have a conversation about that. So that's my humble definition of the metaverse. So Synergy XR, just real quick, we're originally a spin out of Unity, the game engine that we already heard mentioned a few times, along with Unreal. So we're a complete built on top of Unity. We separated the ties back in 2013, and is completely independent from Unity. We are very good friends with Unity, and we have some of the best Unity developers on our team, I think. So we started out building these custom projects for customers, and our customers are enterprise companies with a need for being able to determine who is accessing their data. So we built that custom wise, and did a lot of projects for some of the largest companies in both Denmark and also outside of Denmark. Most of you perhaps know Maersk, the big container ship company, and other companies. So in 2017-18, we kind of saw, instead of starting from a blank page every time a customer came to us with a new idea, a new project that we needed to develop, we wanted to create this platform and actually democratize this new way of doing training and onboarding and all the different use cases that are able to be put in use. So we did that, and have done that for quite a while now, and built the platform, launched it a few years ago, just raised another round of investment from existing investors and new investors. So we're looking at least 24 months of runway to kind of build this platform to something that really is embraced by companies all over the world. Everything is run on Microsoft Azure on our end and building on top of the Unity engine. So what do we mean by XR? And I think I touched a little bit upon it. So we cover a wide variety of different devices and technologies. I already talked about the augmented, the virtual reality, of course, mixed reality with the HoloLens 2. I think the third eye glasses looked super interesting. I would love to dive into them and explore what they're looking at, because they look really interesting. And of course, the ability to access virtual reality, augmented reality from a PC or a desktop, that's of course something that's very important to us. On the augmented reality side, we support Apple iPhones. We're kind of, we want to focus on one thing at a time. On the mixed reality, we're supporting HoloLens for now. We're trying to be really like market driven. So whoever wins the race, I would love to see Third Eye as part of our supported devices real soon. Virtual reality, we're currently supporting on the platform, the Meta Quest 2. Have done custom solutions for both HTC or the Pico and other devices as well. And of course, on desktop side, we're a Windows house, and everything you can do from a Windows computer, as well as soon to be launched on a Mac real soon. So that's, we really want to create something that is for the people and not just for a very selected few. So that's what we want to aim for with this whole XR to the people, which is also what we put on our water bottles, XR to the people. And it's not Chardonnay that I'm drinking. So don't.
You sure?
All right, cool. So why is it relevant? And then this is where I think it gets super interesting, because I love technology and I could talk about technology all day long. But unless we can make it relevant to people, then we have a problem. And if we're not relevant, then we might as well just do something else. So there's a lot of these graphs that show how big this market is going to be. And I have a hard time myself actually comprehend these numbers. So I usually skip this slide and go to this one instead, because I can understand what these four guys are doing right now in this metaverse space. And Facebook is I mean, they're spending more money than the entire Danish healthcare system, twice as much actually per annum. So that's a big number. We're 6 million people in Denmark. Apple, I actually didn't realize that XR is the second largest department at Apple, second only to the iPhone. Microsoft, we just saw a little earlier, I think it was 2 years old, that clip where Satya Nadella was talking about Ferragamo and Natuzzi, a great case, by the way. And then of course, Google is beginning to pick up the pace after they did some very early stuff with the Google glasses. They got a little scared, and now they're back in the game and investing heavily into what's going on here. So that's going to be super interesting to see what these four people alone, and we didn't even mention a few others. Some would miss Jeff Bezos on this slide, but there's a lot going on in this space. So I think we're going to see something very interesting. I'm looking very much forward indeed to seeing the Apple glasses that are very hyped, and when will they come, and everybody's looking forward for that. And let's see what the future brings. At least for us, it's super important that we're device agnostic and we can choose the technology that wins the game on the long run. So we're really adamant about creating technology that is device agnostic. So the XR adoption, I'm going to skip this slide as well. I mean, at the end of this year, we do expect to see some really adoption going on, but let's see, could be early beginning next year. But there's some trends that indicates that we're on moving in on the more steep curve on this slide. So the value, these corporate metaverse, as we tend to call it, because we like to call the metaverse open for all, but when we talk to corporate metaverse, it must be open to all, but by invitation only, and you decide who gets to see whatever you want to show them. So that's kind of our definition of the corporate metaverse. But what does it offer? And let's have a quick look at what we're talking about here. So one thing that we can document over the last many years is that we are able to, through VR, to accelerate employee training and onboarding. We have a great case with a very large Danish manufacturer that documented we could bring onboarding time from 6 weeks to 4 days from a new employee started to they actually started producing, in this case, water pumps, and we're producing output for the company. So in this case, we're able to input top line of company. And if we're not able to have that conversation with companies about how we can impact either their top line or bottom line, we're not relevant. And then we can come with all the great technology that we want, but if we're not able to really impact the business of the companies we talk to, then we have a very hard time in making ourselves relevant. So this is one case where we can really document that VR metaverse is making a great difference. Another one that we've talked about already a few times is the reduction of travel expenses. I mean, we can say a lot about Corona and the pandemic. It taught us how to actually keep online meetings because we were all forced to do that, and it takes us a far way. Zoom and Teams will get us a long way, but this whole idea about being in the same room, and I really, this is to you, Alex, we should do this next time in virtual reality. That could be fun. Let's talk more about that. But being in the same room just creates a completely different setting of having yourself immersed in front of a screen and looking at a lot of different faces. But so we tend to keep all our sales meetings in virtual reality because we're scattered all over Denmark and sometimes we're abroad. And being in the same room, it just gives another dimension to having this conversation. So here's another great use case for companies where we're able to reduce the travel expenses and the CO2 emissions. And by this technology, we can help making this planet a better place and perhaps bring it further down the line to our children and make sure that there's something for them to have a great look at. And so the final and thing that we focus on in our messaging is how we help production companies minimize downtime. And production companies could also be offshore wind companies that if a wind turbine is not producing energy, that's super expensive. If you need to repair it on the ocean, it's very, very expensive. If you can teach people to actually tighten the knots onshore or make sure that if there's a production line in Mexico that suddenly stops, we can remotely add in an expert from Denmark and help that production line getting back up to speed, so that the downtime is minimized and the cost, the financial costs of that are of course minimized. And we don't have to put engineers or people with heavy knowledge about production lines on planes and buses and spending too much time on hotels away from family. We can simply have the experts actually sitting remote and making sure that whenever there's a problem, we can attend to it right away, really quick. So those are those three use cases that we look into when we talk to companies about this great technology that we're helping them embrace and start using. So we do look into a lot of growing problems, and I'm having a look at the time. How does it look, Isabella? Are we
have a few more minutes, let's say.
Okay, cool. So I just want to address a few high-level problems that companies all over the globe right now are facing. We see some worker issues and employee problems. We at least in where I'm from, we see a lot of people that are getting older and older, and in not so many years, they're out of the workforce. And we need to capture all that accumulated knowledge and make sure that the next generation are able to capture that knowledge, not only by reading books or listening to tapes, but by immersing that into a VR setting where they can actually use that knowledge and apply it to their next job or next setting. So there's a lot of this retention of knowledge and making sure that it stays. From the production side, we see a lot of machinery downtime. It's so expensive that you can't even put a number to it. We see a lot of heavy equipment companies within our customer portfolio that they really want to minimize the human mistakes. They want to make sure that they have safe work environments, and they really want to cut away that unnecessary travel, both from a financial perspective, but also from a employee perspective. I mean, it's hard to be away 200 days a year away from family and spending time in airports and on hotels. So we want to address that as well. And then there's this company issue that, hey, everybody is forced to kind of reduce their CO2 emissions. They want to save on travel costs. They want to improve. I mean, we're looking at a new workforce of millennials that are not perhaps spending 20, 25, 30 years within the same company, but are perhaps 2, 3, 4 years at the same place, and then they move on to the next place because they want this free spirit mentality. And how do we make sure that we can retain those generations of new employees? Well, by introducing great technology and a great environment for them. That's definitely a part of attracting this young workforce and then making sure that they stay on board instead of just moving on like nomads. So those are the problems that we're facing, and the reasons that companies really need to embrace this corporate metaverse is that they want to really control the data. They want to be able to offer a remote workforce, and that's also, I mean, we have one of our developers is just taken a few months remote, not on Bali, but in Thailand, and he's going to be working remote, and we can enable that through technology and through the metaverse. And like I just said, the knowledge raise, how do we actually make sure that we capture this accumulated knowledge that workers have been collecting all over the years, and make sure that we can distribute that throughout the organization for the next generation. So those are some of the reasons that companies really need to have a look at to embrace this corporate metaverse. So finally, there's 3 problems, and we want to address those with our platform. It's too expensive. They don't have skills. They don't have Unity developers, and they really don't know where to start. So a lot of companies come to us and say, hey, how do we start this? And we help them identify a use case, and we carve that out, and then we make sure that that's a success, and then we can expand within the company, building on top of a great success within the company already. But we want to make it sure that companies can start using the corporate metaverse within days instead of months and tens of thousands of dollars of investment before they start to something. So it's a couple of days, and then you're started with our platform, and then you can start putting your own, perhaps your own scanned 3D objects into a room and start have a conversation about that. So we want to address that, and I think we're doing pretty good in that. Hang on, something is happening here with my final slide.
Oh,
Uh-oh.